Let's talk about the story we got from the New York Post. FBI brass warned agents off Hunter Biden laptop due to 2020 election, according to whistleblowers. FBI officials told agents not to investigate first son Hunter Biden's infamous laptop for months, vowing that the Bureau was, quote, not going to change the outcome of the election again, according to whistleblower claims made public by Wednesday by Senator Ron Johnson. These new allegations provide even more evidence of FBI corruption and renew calls for you to take immediate steps to investigate the FBI's actions, regardless of the laptop, Johnson wrote in a letter to Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz. According to the senator, individuals with knowledge had told his office that local FBI leadership had slow-walked the laptop investigation after the computer was recovered from a Wilmington, Delaware repair shop in December of 2019. We got this story from the Examiner. Jim Jordan says more FBI whistleblowers are coming forward every other week. Here's where it gets crazy. The FBI said not to investigate very serious crimes, which literally involved the man running. And the excuse was, we don't want to interfere in an election. It's like, no, you're literally interfering. You're pausing your job, not bringing criminal justice accountability to a corrupt family because the person's running for office. At the same time, right now, Donald Trump, who we all know is going to be running, is having his home raided by the FBI, and they're cheering for it. So very clearly, what's the word for, when we've done hundreds of shows, thousands of segments, and we just talk about political civil war, conflict, weaponization of the DOJ, all of that stuff. And like, this is certainly should be a cold splash of water in the face of the average person. And if this doesn't do it for you, like to somebody, and they don't believe it, there's no change in their minds. You actually have the FBI whistleblower saying, we were told not to investigate a Hunter Biden laptop, which includes Joe Biden. Meanwhile, Donald Trump currently right now is having his home raided. Okay, there you go. It's busted. What do we do?
We do what we do, which is, I'm glad you pointed out, doing nothing is a form of doing something. Often sitting by and watching evil take place is an active thing you do. So they certainly influence the election by not getting involved or by choosing to ignore it. That's a form of influence.
Like it would be if, let's say there's a house on fire and it's got evidence of a crime in it. And the firefighters are like, I'm not going to put that fire out because then somebody might find that evidence and use that against the person who lives there. So we'd rather just let the place burn down, I guess. That makes no sense. The FBI, they're law enforcement. They're supposed to say, we will stop criminal activity. This means Hunter Biden could have been actively engaged in criminal activity for a year. And the FBI was like, well, but Joe Biden's going to run for office, so we better just let him do it. There you go. Welcome to what's the word for it? What do we call this era in American history? Is there a word we can use?
I don't know. I mean, it's just such a partisan play, right? We don't want to influence an election depending on who's running and also who we don't want to run. It's just so strange and open. I am surprised that the FBI isn't. I was really surprised when the obvious answer after Mar-a-Lago was people being like, we don't know that we trust the FBI. Why are we letting this organization run this way? And the response was, no, you can't say that about this giant government institution. Like, it seems like it's clearly biased to favor Democrats right now and to protect Democrats who might be conducting or acting illegally, but obviously choosing to investigate Trump and other Republicans. It's just, how can you even trust the system when it's so obviously biased?
But they don't care.
No, they don't.
I think what they're really trying to do is protect the liberal economic order, which is this global, thing we've had since 1946, basically to prevent World War III. And whether I don't personally think it's like a Democrat-Republican thing. I think they're trying to hold up the old order.
I disagree somewhat. I agree that there are powerful interests and entities that clearly want the liberal international economy to stay afloat. But people are chatting about Sam Harris as a good example of exactly what is going on here. Sam Harris, he said the quiet part out loud. Mm-hmm. And then he tried walking it back because he realized what he was saying, what he was admitting to. He said he would not care if Hunter Biden had the corpses of children in his basement. It's like, you realize who's giving this guy money and who's funding this and like what that investigation would actually lead to, but they don't care. This is they're psychopaths. I don't know. Like, what's the mental Trump derangement syndrome? Is that the official diagnosis? You have people who are like Sam Harris literally saying Hunter Biden could be abusing and murdering kids, but Trump once had a university, and that's worse. He actually said those words. He said, I wouldn't care if there were corpses of children in Hunter Biden's basement. What Trump did with Trump University was way worse than anything Hunter Biden could have done. And it's like, what? Like the worst case scenario is Trump opened a fake university and ripped some people off. And that's worse than Joe Biden funneling U.S. taxpayer money to Ukraine and getting us involved in war and surrendering in Afghanistan.
Among other things, among a few other things. I mean, so you asked, what is this period in America's history called? It's the hopefully attempted color revolution of the United States.
Weimar America?
I mean, well, one wishes, actually. It's worse than that. It's exactly the same kind of thing they pulled in Ukraine a couple, like 2014 or whatever. We're talking about a revolution. They are attempting to take over the country illegitimately, in my opinion.
And what I was saying earlier is, I've talked about civil war, but I should revise that. Because civil war implies two factions competing. Right now, it just looks like it's a revolution. So you look at Soviet Russia, you look at Germany. Those were not civil wars. The political conflict ultimately resulted in one faction just instantly winning without a civil war. So to be a bit more pessimistic, the result of everything that's going on would be revolution. But I do kind of feel like they're losing. So
I do too. And so, I mean, another way that we could characterize this, since you have me here and I talk about Marxist theory all the time, is that what we're actually living through is kind of the logic of this essay from 1965 called Repressive Tolerance. I bring this up a million times. I brought it up here before, but the logic of repressive tolerance is that the left must be tolerated at any. This is actually, you can look up the essay itself. It's the thesis statement. We must extend tolerance to the left. We must not extend tolerance to the right. They say that this includes the level of violence. Herbert Marcuse is the one who wrote this in 65. He said, it's never ethical to engage in violence, but since when does ethics make history? And so he excuses violence, and he has a long paragraph where he mentions violence like 13 times. And he says there's a big difference between revolutionary violence and reactionary violence. And what the deal is, we must extend tolerance to the left and not to the right. And he says to the point with the right that what you're actually trying to stop, and this is the Hunter Biden story, right? What you're trying to stop is the thought from entering the potential reactionary's mind. He says that it involves not just censorship, but pre-censorship. You don't even want the right wing, which is everybody who's not a revolutionary on the left is the right wing, by the way. Right. You don't even want the thought to enter their mind that would allow anything except left-wing power to take control. And so we live in the logic of that essay. I would guess that our Department of Justice and our FBI have taken this horrifically totalitarian document from the 60s as an instruction manual. And what you see then is you see this cracking down on President Trump, which, by the way, I was on a flight recently to California. I'm sitting next to a lifelong, she's in her 70s, lifelong California liberal, married to a professor, the whole thing, right? So you're thinking some leftist. She starts talking about Trump. She's like, well, first she asked me what I do. I said I go around and I talk about Marxism. I study Marxism. She's like, well, I don't know anything about Marxism. I'm thinking that's why you probably support it. She says that she's asking me, do you think Trump's a dictator? I think he might have been an attempted dictator, this whole thing. And then she says, but this raid on his house was too far. So you talk about shaking people loose and freaking people out. She's like, this isn't what we do in America. Like they shouldn't have raided his house. And I was like, wow, that's something. Now I heard a podcast with like a literal neo-communist, one of the people that's in league with that literal neo-communist that AOC shared a megaphone with after Samara Taylor or whatever her name is, after the Roe v. Wade decision. And this podcast was with an educator who's also an open communist, Henry Giroux, who like changed all of American education to be what it is today. And in that podcast, she's like, the very fact that they raided his house means that there must be evidence that he's done all this wrong stuff. And I was like, wow, the dividing line in our society is people who think the institutions are still legitimate, like Sam Harris, and people who don't, who have questions at least about them.
Well, so I often I eschew the left-right paradigm. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's what my Wikipedia says about me. And then, people argue, but Tim talks about the left and the right all the time. And I'm like, they're colloquial terms that don't really reference politics. They reference, I think you put it well, revolutionary. And I don't think reactionary, to be completely honest, because there are reformers.
Right. With the leftist view, everybody except themselves as reactionaries, as the right, and literally as like right-wing extremists, which of course we hear from our military, we hear from the DOJ, etc.
I often say it's those who are discerning and those who are not. Mm-hmm. It's simply put, there are people who will hear information and say, I'll check into that. And there are people who hear information and go, whoa.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. And so then you end up with Michael Brown, and they go, whoa, that's crazy. And then we go, what's the report say? Oh, the report says hands up, don't shoot wasn't true. Then you get people who are like, Jussie Smollett, whoa. And then we're like, okay, that sounds nuts. Like right away when the story came out, we were like, dude, Trump supporters at 3 a.m. in freezing weather in Chicago in a work district, not a residential one, attacking a D-list celebrity. I really don't believe.
I stayed in that hotel in January. It was like 8 degrees. I had COVID. It was awesome.
That's great.
It was it was like -8 degrees. It was, nobody's getting attacked there.
Let me give you a really good example, actually, and I want to shout out to our good friend Vosh, actually, and that's
Voosh.
only half Vosh. You know Vosh, right?
Yeah, Voosh.
Voosh. It's only half sarcastic. I do respect that he was willing to come on the show, though we disagree with him. But he tweeted, "I delayed paying off my student loans just in case debt relief got passed, and now I find out you're not eligible if you're a famous YouTuber who makes $1 million a day. Honestly." And he's obviously joking. So I responded with, OMG, this is exactly the left. Vosh is rich and wants free money. This is proof Biden is a communist. Very clearly, we're both just being silly.
Yeah.
But wow, the responses from people who instantly believed I was there are people on the left who believed Vosh was being serious, and they're going, he makes $1 million a day.
That's
and there are people
amazing.
responding to me, and they're like, look at these right-wing grifters. Look what they're saying. And it's just like, that's it right there.
Did you know if he gave $1 million a day to people, then America everybody could have $1 million.
That's right.
He's the one stopping
You know
this.
what I,
It's all Vush's fault.
I know.
you know what I love the most, though, is when someone says, like, they're like, what do they say? Michael Bloomberg spent $500 million on the election. There are 300 million people living in this country. He could have given everyone $1 million.
Yeah,
And
that
it's like,
was
do your
great.
math again.
Well,
Did
yeah,
you math-
well,
it's like
millions is
buck
a unit.
60,
you see.
like-
It's
yeah,
like,
right.
like you have
Millions a
10
unit.
eggs and everybody could have eggs. It's millions is just a unit.
Yep.
It's simple.
And so this is, so to go back to your point, you're mentioning it's the people who trust the institutions, people who don't. It's like, yeah, that's all part of it. I refer to it as a cult.
It is a cult. It's 100% a cult. I would love to talk about how, like, not just religious but cultish. This whole, like, whether we want to deal with it woke, whether we want to deal with like this kind of like leftist derangement cult. Like Sam Harris has, I would guess, I don't know, I've been out with him once, but I can't guess his mind. But I would suppose he has a group of people to whom he's very interested in maintaining their esteem.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, as you would also be able to tell people, there are certain things that you just can't espouse, and then before people decide they don't like you anymore. Like people they think you've lost your mind. They think that that you're a terrible person. They disassociate from you. And
But that's mostly on the left. Like
it
it exists on the right for sure.
a little bit, but I mean,
It's the exception.
how did one get here?
Right.
Yeah. So I've
It's
been
the
cut
rule for the
off.
left.
I've been canceled from all kinds of people I thought were friends. All sorts of stuff. Because, well, what did I do? I said that maybe Trump is an all right candidate for
Trump's
president.
not that bad.
Maybe Orange Man good. Who knows? Maybe making America great again is a good idea because it's kind of on the descent right now if we don't kind of curb some of these things.
I was I've been talking about music lately because we're releasing this song, and it's fresh in my mind. So for those that are wondering, it's like, why is Tim bringing it up again? Well, it's like it's in my mind. We're working on this project, and I tweeted this today. Like, there are people who are scared to say things they like, and that's weird to me. So Nickelback is a really good example, because everybody jokes about how awful Nickelback is. It's like, dude, they have 6 top 10. Oh, I'm sorry, they have 6 top 10s on Billboard Hot 100. And they have one Billboard Hot 100 #1 for 4 weeks. For 1 month, they had a song on the number one song. Like, people clearly like Nickelback.
Yeah.
But it became a meme where it was like you weren't cool if you admitted to liking them.
Well, that's because they went huge.
Maybe, but I'll say this. So I was like, people clearly like them. Not really my jam. I've never been like a fan of them. But they did a cover of "Devil Went Down to Georgia," which is mind-blowingly good. It's one of the best covers of the song I've ever heard. The guitar
check
playing
that
is
out.
crazy. The vocals are fantastic. They cut the chorus out though, and I'm like, come on, man. Charlie Daniels Band. It's a classic song, but it was really, really good. It's amazing. I got no problem saying that. And there are people tweeting at me being like, this explains it. He admits it. And I'm like, do you think I care? I genuinely enjoy that song. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about you not liking me because you do nothing for my life.
There's a term for this.
What is it?
It's preference falsification. It's that in order to appear socially acceptable, you falsify your actual preferences.
Yeah.
That you like a Nickelback cover or song or band, period. But you know that the people you're talking to will think you're not cool if you do that. And so you falsify your preferences as
That's crazy
as a
to me.
social maneuver.
That's crazy to me.
And I actually think that people like Sam Harris falsified their preferences, or maybe they didn't, but maybe they just got sucked in by the psyops. But a lot of people falsified their preferences about Trump to the point where they believed it. Like it drove them. If you live in crazy town for long enough, you go crazy.
I mentioned this the other day a couple times, a video of a woman asking 3 women, what is a woman? And I think it was Matt Walsh who responded, these women all clearly know what a woman is, but they're trying to reconcile the definition with what they're allowed to say.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like definition falsification or something. A lot of people miss, by the way, the big point of what is a woman. A lot of people don't understand what that's about. And just to point out, Ketanji Brown Jackson actually told us when Marsha Blackburn caught her out, said, what is a woman? She said, oh, I don't know. Do I look like a biologist or whatever it was she said exactly about invoking an expert. What she said is, I can't answer that question without asking an expert.
Yeah.
In other words, we can't answer simple questions about reality without an expert telling us what the right answer is.
Correct.
And that's scary as hell because that's superpower grab territory.
Yep.
Right. And that's exactly what they are doing by undermining definitions, by undermining people's ability to say what's real and not real, or use words and have them mean things.
You mentioned this woman on the plane, right? You were saying?
Yeah.
And she said the raid on Trump went too far.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a point where, Sam Harris, let me slow down, go to Sam Harris. He's got the most severe TDS I have ever seen. That woman does not. She's probably a normal person and just passively absorbs information and thinks Trump is bad because she's just hearing it. But then when she hears something crosses the line, she made up her mind. That's too much for me. Sam Harris told us there could be corpses of children in the basement of Hunter Biden. He wouldn't care. And
He
it's like,
compared him to an asteroid that's going to destroy the Earth. Then
That's
the next
psychotic.
sentence. That's lunacy.
Like not only is that just on its face laughably crazy, but even if Trump really was Hitler and like the worst dictator possible, would never amount to an asteroid smashing into Earth and wiping out all life as we know it.
Yeah.
Like bad
Not even
dictator, bad. We deal with bad dictator. Certainly is not an asteroid coming to wipe out the planet, rip through its core and blow it up.
He's speaking in hyperbole for sure. I mentioned to you, it seems like he has like either he needs friends or he's got a group of insulated friends and he's in an echo chamber and he needs like people to listen to him and tell him when he's being an idiot. Sam, you went too far. I know you were being hyperbolic when you said that stuff.
He tried
Hyperbolic
walking
is
in
like
backwards.
Ex-
Would have
exact-
cared if Hunter had kids in his basement. Of course he would have
No, but
cared.
I disagree.
being hyperbolic is like exaggerating something to prove a point. Whereas like that was a really strange thing to just state. Like I don't think that qualifies as hyperbole because I think he's being honest.
What was happening is he said, I wouldn't have cared if Hunter had dead children in his basement. I would not have cared, in brackets, as much, or I wouldn't have cared.
I think it's simpler than that.
In brackets.
I see what you're saying, but I think it's simpler. I think it's, you mentioned he's got a group of people he's trying to pander to. He's doing this public interview. He wants them to hear it, whoever they are. And so he has to keep one-upping his position. He has to be bigger, stronger, better. And in this line of thinking, it's Trump is bad. We must stop Trump by any means necessary. In order to pander to those people, he has to constantly expand upon his position. Now he's at the point where he's like, dead kids don't care. Huh? Just got to stop Trump. He's an asteroid.
It's kind of like how incrementally the Nazis started. First, they didn't like Jews. Then they started taking their businesses away. Then they started shipping them out. Then they started shipping them to camps. Then they started killing them. Like how it incrementally got worse and worse. So same with Sam's mind seems to have incrementally, according to what you're
now,
saying.
imagine
getting
people
more
in politics or the FBI doing that, and this is the story we have. The FBI going like, well, we can't go after Hunter. Oh, but Donald Trump, he had documents. Even though he has, like unilateral declassification powers.
Yeah, you said something.
Did you see the thing that they put out that huge list of items, and one of the things that was contraband was I guess an illegal cocktail napkin from the White House. They had a cocktail
But didn't the
napkin.
Clintons like move furniture out of the White House? Like this was like one of the famous things. They had to return stuff to the residence. They had moved stuff out. Like
I don't know. We're not supposed to know anything about.
Oh,
what Hillary
sorry.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.